This is the Head in the Clouds podcast, the podcast dedicated to helping you get your dream off the ground. Now to the man with his head constantly in the clouds, your host, Ryan Romeo.
That's right, English announcer lady. This is the Head in the Clouds podcast, the podcast dedicated to helping you get your dream off the ground. Your God-given, kingdom-expanding dream off the ground. That's why we're doing this. That's why I'm doing this podcast. I am passionate about you taking these big visions, these big dreams, these things that God has given you and you alone, and honoring them and taking them off the ground. That is the point of this podcast. And last week was week 1 of 12 weeks to getting your dream off the ground. And this, again, like I was saying last week, we are like a family here on this podcast. I want us to band together, to encourage one another. I want this to be a place that empowers you to dive into the things that you really believe that God's telling you to do. And last week we talked about dreaming. We talked about, circling a dream, going, okay, God, what is this dream? Maybe you haven't been dreaming for a while. Maybe you've had some difficulties getting dreams off the ground and you've kind of given up. That's okay. Today is a great day to pick them back up and restart. So last week we were talking about that. For those of you who don't feel like you have a dream, you don't understand what it is, jump back to last week's podcast. We talked a lot about that. And hopefully diving into week 2, you have a dream that you have circled, that you're like, God, this is the thing that I really want to pour into. This is the thing I really believe that you're calling me to. And I want to just right off the bat, when we're talking about valuing dreams, I get so many responses on posts and DMs and things from people that I really do think that we see a lot more eye to eye than they think. But a lot of people that are like, you know what, Ryan, dreams don't matter. Following Jesus is not about us, it's about him, and all of those things I actually really agree with. This is not a podcast that says, take your dream that, is going to just make you rich or, manipulate people into giving you money. This is not that kind of place. This is not the podcast to come to if you have a very self-aggrandizing sort of dream. That is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about honoring the kind of dreams that God gives us that really ultimately end up being very self-sacrificial. They end up being this thing that we die to. I talked about it, on several podcasts, but Outcry was one of those really big dreams that I had when, taking Outcry off the ground was something that was really a big dream of mine. And it was so difficult. It really was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. And that is the kind of self-sacrifice that happens when you have a God-given dream. It does not mean that it happens easy. You look at the life of Joseph and you go, okay, God gave him a dream, this vague sort of dream, and we're going to be talking about this a little bit later, but this sort of echo of what he is going to be doing in the future. And his life basically gets flushed down the proverbial toilet. It's like he gets this dream that's like, man, you are going to be a man of great influence. So much so that your family is going to be bowing down in front of you. And then you become a slave, you become imprisoned, you get wrongly accused of things. This is the other side of this idea of following a God-given dream. It will be a sacrifice. There will be a lot of death involved, not physical death. Well, hopefully not physical death, but death to self involved. And a lot of self-sacrifice and laying things down to say, God, this is actually service to you. And God gives us these dreams on purpose. And one of the things that we run up against, and this is the main thing I want to talk about today, and just so you guys know, I am going through the Head in the Clouds book. This is a book that came out, and then 2 weeks later, we went into quarantine, and God and I had a lot of words about that, going, okay, Lord, what's the point of that? But I still so firmly believe in this book. And I want to go through it. This is really something that I want to take you through it. And if you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy what's going on, pick up the book. It's just an elongated version of all the stuff that we talk about. But today I want to talk about 2 extreme mindsets that people have when they're approaching dreams. Because in the church, we have these kind of, I really believe, these messed up versions of dreams that we bring to the table. And I want to talk about both of them today. The number one extreme when it comes to a mindset in pursuing dreams, and especially I see it in the church, but that's the anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon. The anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon. The curmudgeon is somebody who has given up on their dream. The curmudgeon is somebody who's like, I had to walk barefoot uphill in the snow both ways to give up on the dreams that I had. And kid, you're going to find out real quick that life's not easy. None of this stuff is easy. I've given up on my dreams. You need to give up on your dreams too. Now, this is a bit of an extreme. Not everybody approaches it this way, but I really do picture it as like that grumpy old man that's like, kid, give up, you know. And the thing is, when you come against the head in the clouds, anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon, what you're going to find is that there is no dreamer really left alive in them, or the dreamer is alive in them, but it's been so repressed that it's even painful for them to bring it up. And honestly, this is the place where we have to have empathy toward one another. But the anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon, when he's coming to you going, or she, but I'm going to just characterize it as a he for right now. Like when they're coming at you going, you little whippersnappers have no idea what you're talking about. Especially when you're young, especially when you're like really excited about taking something off the ground, when you're in your late teens or early 20s or mid 20s or late 20s, and you're like, gosh, I just see this vision. I know it might seem foolish, but I just want to take us somewhere new, or I want to try something different. The anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon is not a wise figure that comes to you and says, hey, I've got some insight for you. You know, if you're taking this dream off the ground, I want to give you some ideas of some pitfalls that might be coming your way. No, that's not what his MO is. His MO is actually to take you down a notch. His MO is to say, I don't even care what this dream is or how you think you're going to get there. You just need to give up on it. And the empathy that we need to build for the anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon, because we do need to build empathy toward one another, is most likely the anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon had a big dream from God, had a vision from God, had something that he was really excited about in his 20s, and had another curmudgeon come along and stamp it out of him. Or he came across dream killers, which we will be talking about in the coming weeks. Came across dream killers, like, you know, you're like a setback, a serious setback in their life, or maybe, you know, they had somebody that was just really talking bad to them, or a critic that was really hard on them, and they gave up on that dream. The anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon most likely at some point in their life gave up on a dream, and it was painful, and it caused them to wallow in cynicism and self-pity to the point where they smashed their dream down and said, life is not about that. Life is just about every day forcing yourself to work hard. And there's something to be said about work ethic and all of that stuff. Again, things we're going to be talking about in the coming weeks. But the anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon most likely at some point had a dream crushed in their life. And whenever the anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon comes up against you, you have to be able to filter that voice and go, okay, is this somebody that's trying to give me wisdom, or is this somebody that's just trying to knock me down a peg? So there's this extreme where it's like, you know, life is not about dreams. Like, God doesn't care about dreams. None of that is true. None of that is true, by the way. And we live in this sort of world where it's like this kind of false humility where we're like, no, smash those things that down about you, and the cross is all about killing everything about you, even the good stuff, even the stuff that's deep down inside of you that God gave you, smash that down too. That is not true. That is not true, and you cannot listen to the voices in your life that say, give up on those dreams because they're just too audacious. God loves big dreams. I'm going to say it again. God loves big dreams. And he who started that good work in you, like Philippians said, will bring it to completion. God gave you dreams on purpose, and he really does care about them. And we have to filter them, and we're going to be talking about that filter in the coming weeks. But we got to filter them and go, okay, is this something that God wants me to do? Is this something that honors Him, that glorifies Him, that builds other people up, that brings something in me alive that maybe has been dormant? These are all things that we need to look at when it comes to our dreams. But we cannot listen to the voices of the extremers. We cannot listen to the voices of the people that say God does not care about dreams, because He does. We need to be the hopeful people. We need to be the people that goes, you know what, even in the face of COVID and in the face of riots and insane stuff that's going on in politics right now, we are going to hold fast to the idea that God has good plans for us, that God has kingdom building plans for each one of us, because He hand-wired each one of us uniquely to take on certain dreams. We cannot let the anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon smash our dreams down. We have to fight to keep them alive. And we have to believe that God does care about them, and He really, really does. He really does care about them. But on the other extreme, there's another kind of person that I want to talk about. So there's the anti-head in the clouds curmudgeon. Don't want to be that person. Don't want to listen to those people. We need to believe that God has big dreams for us. We need to have faith. We need to be able to step out. We need to be able to have faith that God has created us and value the dreams that God gave us, and take them off the ground as an investment in us. God gave us dreams as an investment into His people, and He wants it to bear fruit. But the other personality is the everything should be easy optimist. Everything should be easy optimist. Again, I've run into this sort of mindset in the church all the time. And this is the opposite spectrum. This is the person that says, following your dreams is everything. It's all, everything in your life needs to be about our dreams and our reality and taking things off the ground. And the everything should be easy optimist falls into a couple of pitfalls. One, our life is not just about us. Our dreams need to be able to be there to also bless other people. And as dreamers, we need to recognize fellow dreamers and understand that there's people around us that have their own dreams. And we need to call those out of those people. So for the everything should be easy optimist, they go, hey, I've got this dream, and they feel entitled to other people's work. And this is the key. This really is the key. When you are coming at dreaming with this mindset of everything should be easy, our dreams should take off the ground, and the first time you have a meeting with somebody and they go, I don't know, I'm not real excited about it. Or have you thought of this, And I'm not talking about like somebody coming trying to smash your dream, but somebody giving you some perspective, somebody giving you some balance, or maybe somebody who's not very excited about your dream. And you come across them, and this victim mindset starts to sink in, and you go, I am entitled to your excitement about my dream because I dreamed it and it's really exciting to me. We are never entitled to anyone else's excitement about our dream. I'm going to say that again. We are never entitled to someone else's excitement when it comes to our dreams and our visions. We have to work hard to communicate it to people. Sometimes you need to show it to people. Sometimes you need to work hard at making a proposal. I always talk about this. If you've got a dream, awesome. Don't just share it with your friends, but actually write it down. Give the people something to be excited about. This takes work. It really takes work to do this. And the everything should be easy optimist falls into this trap of entitlement, falls into this trap that dreams are all about them and that everyone around them is there to serve their dreams, instead of understanding that everyone around them has their own dreams that they want to take off the ground. And of course, we're going to lead people. We're going to communicate dreams. Sometimes we share a dream with someone else and they go, wow, that's so similar to my dream. I want to follow you because you seem like you've worked this dream out. Awesome. Like great when that happens. But you're not entitled to that. You are not entitled to that. I've come across a lot of people who get an exciting dream, and they meet with their leadership, meet with their church leadership or their business leadership or whatever, and they go, I've got this idea. I want to take it off the ground. and the leadership says, I'm not really buying it. Or, you know what, can you expand that a little bit? I don't know if this vision is very clear. And gives them very actionable feedback that they go, and saying, hey, you know, these are some ways that you can make it better. And they go away with this idea of, man, my leadership's not behind me. Man, the people around me don't believe in me. I'm in the wrong environment. They tell themselves all these lies. Sometimes they compare themselves, you know, like in the church world, it's easy to go, gosh, if only I was in Bethel or Elevation or Hillsong, or like, then they would really get it, you know. And that is not true. We are never entitled to anyone else's excitement. We're never entitled to anyone else's hard work when it comes to our dream. And especially when a dream is in its infancy, we have to be the first people in there to work hard for it. I remember when Outcry was going on, and obviously when we took it off the ground, it's exciting. You're like, man, we're on tour with Hillsong United and Jesus Culture, and who else was on that tour? And Lauren Daigle and Carrie Job and all these amazing, amazing people. And I remember I showed up and I was going, okay, Shane, you know, had some more experience when it came to this world, and him and I came together and we're like, okay, let's do this thing. What ended up happening was it was far harder than I ever thought or imagined when I showed up. And I remember going, okay, this rises and falls on me. This does not rise and fall on everyone else around me working hard. If I'm going to lead right now, I need to step in. I need to fill every gap that I didn't foresee, and I need to take responsibility for this thing. And I worked so hard. I was in tears many days when I was working on that tour. Same with, we just did a local conference here called Dwell, and taking that off the ground was very, very hard. And this last year, we did it right before COVID, and I'll just say, it was not fun. I was working really hard. I should have delegated a little bit better, and it felt like such a sacrifice to do that. And on its face, it's like, oh, we've got Phil Wickham and John Egan and all these really cool people showing up, you know. This is going to be so fun. And yes, it was fun. Yes, it was amazing. Yes, I was thankful to be able to help take it off the ground. But as the leader, I felt this pressure that really was hard to handle. And the everything should be easy optimist says, that's wrong, Ryan. You need to give that to the Lord. You need to take that weight off your shoulders. Yes, you know, like we cannot take weight to the point where we're having mental breakdown. But when we're taking something off the ground, it's going to be hard work. And it is not easy in the beginning. And it only becomes easier later as you spearhead it, as you take the weight on your shoulders, then you figure out what you need to do to delegate it. Then it starts to get easier. And year 3 of Outcry was way easier than year 1 of Outcry. Why? Because I worked really hard year 1, figured out what I needed, started filling those gaps, and by year 3, it was like, hey, we're here. This is a lot easier. I get to show up. What everyone imagines as leadership, I finally got to that place where I was like, I get to show up today. I got a great team working, touch bases with a handful of people, and I can breathe going into this event. But you earned that. You are not entitled to that. And the everything should be easy optimist says, you know, if God is with me, then little or no work is required. I'm actually going to read a segment out of my book because I feel like, and again, this is the extreme mindset. Most people are somewhere in between, but I'm just going to read the what I picture as the everything should be easy optimist. The optimist is quick with platitudes and spiritual warm fuzzies. Don't worry so much about working toward your dreams, she'll say. If God is in it, then little or no work is required. By me, anyway. Besides, any work other than prayer is striving in the flesh, which is sinful. She'll go on to tell you that there's no need for all the networking and planning and pitching of ideas. Let's just pray about it, she'll say with a wave of her hand. When you stop trying so hard, you can be sure that it is God and not your flesh when your dreams are finally fulfilled. Yikes. And if visions do begin to be fulfilled in Optimist's life, then it's built on the hard work of other people. She'll smile and say, "See, you were all working way too hard." Now, I know it's extreme, but really there's some version of this in every group that I've worked with of going, the hard work is really just the prayer and the worship that goes into it. And I am not saying don't do that. Pray, worship, seek the Lord, write that stuff down. That is foundational. At some point, though, the Bible says we are co-laborers with God. We are co-workers with God. God doesn't give us a vision and then go, "Now sit back, sit on that couch, and watch me do my magic." And God rolls up his sleeves and just goes, shoots the lasers out of his fingers, and then everything happens. No, we are co-workers with God. We have the privilege of working alongside God. And the everything that should be easy optimist, the pitfall that she falls into, is this idea that you are entitled when you go in there, that you don't have to work hard, that partnering with God means that you don't have to work. None of this is true. And so we have to avoid either way. We have to avoid this, the curmudgeon saying, "Give up on your dreams, kid. Just buckle down and work hard. And, and every day is just going to be harder than the day before, That is not a healthy mindset. At the same time, we can't go on to the other extreme and say, well, then if God's in it, then everything will happen easily. We cannot do that. We have to value the dreams that God gave us. We need to put them in the proper context. We need to not feel entitled to anybody else's excitement or hard work. In the beginning, we are not entitled to any of that. The job is on us to communicate vision. And in the later weeks in this 12-week series, we're going to be talking about that. How do you communicate, in an elevator pitch to somebody? How do you get money for the things that you're dreaming for? We're going to be hitting all those things. But right here in the beginning, we just have to lay a really strong foundation of what dreams are, what dreams are not. And that is vital, vital, vital for us. Now we're going to move on to the next segment. We did this last week. Talked to my friend Connor, a guy that I had never met or talked to on the phone, just hearing his heart, having him ask me some questions. And now, there is a fellow dreamer that I'm excited to talk to. I had a conversation with my friend Kendrick, talking about dreams he has, talking about stuff that he's got going on, and then opening it up for him asking me questions. So without any further ado, here's my phone call with my friend Kendrick. Kendrick, so good to see you, man.
Let's go, Ryan. We in the building.
Yeah. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. I need to get a couple coffees in me. Maybe one. Oh, good enough to wake up a bit. But hey, I'm feeling great. All I need is water. Hey, that'll make me
That's it.
peppy.
So tell everybody who's listening, tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a dream that right now you're pursuing or you're thinking about pursuing, and we could kind of dive in from there.
Absolutely. So my name's Kendrick Jones. I am born and raised from Louisiana. And I moved here last August of last year to attend Hillsong College USA. So I'm a second-year student here at Hillsong College USA. I'm actually here right now. And, I've had an incredible time. I'm also a podcaster, so I'm a podcast host of the Dreamer Collective podcast, which this month in September has made 3 years that I've been podcasting. It's been life-changing. It's made me a better listener. It's made me a better friend. It's made me a better leader. And I think like some dreams that have been stirring up. Sometimes, for all the podcasters who are also in school, it can be hard to be, consistent with going to the next level of what you're dreaming of and where you'd like your podcast or whatever initiative you have to be at or where you'd like it to go. And so I think my dream right now is to really incorporate events and community with the podcast. And I did that before moving here pretty consistently, but I'm really dreaming of really incorporating that with the Dreamer Collective here soon in Arizona.
That's awesome. I love that, man. And you and I have talked about this, but the fact that you've kept going for 3 years is pretty awesome. I mean,
Thank-
a lot of people are flash in the pan. They're like, "Oh, I'm gonna start a podcast," and 3 months later, they're like, "Oh, I haven't done anything," you know. And to keep it going for 3 years is amazing. It's awesome. I love that. So,
thank-
would you have any questions for me when it comes to where you're going in this next season?
Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, I would love to ask you. You know, again, being in a season, things change. We're in a time where a lot of things have changed.
Yeah.
And I guess my question would be, um, how do you, or what route would it be, or what would it look like for me to make those next levels happen of what I want to do with the podcast? I know a lot of it can look like simple initiative, um, but how do I incorporate those things and like kind of take what I'm doing to the next level of what I'd like to do whenever
Yeah.
maybe school kind of gets in the way or work
Yeah.
or whatever that looks like, life. Um,
Yes.
I guess I'm just trying to find like, how do I do that? How do I accomplish that?
Yeah. I think there's there's this there's this thing where we're really steady with something, and you've been going with something for 3 years, which is amazing and beautiful. But also the challenge is like, okay, how do you reinvent it? You know, once I start getting comfortable, um, am I just going through the motions at this point? And I think that that's where, for dreamers that have taken something off the ground, when it's been going for a little while, like, how do you take it to that next level? And I have a producer for my podcast, and like this season, I'm incorporating YouTube and doing some more segments like this in the podcast. And it all came about because when him and I were sitting down, he said, "Ryan, have you become comfortable doing the podcast?" And I said, "Yeah. I mean, I could hit record and I could talk for 25 minutes, no problem." He's like, "I think that's the problem. You're a little too comfortable.
Oh,
You gotta push past that and get into some territory that you're uncomfortable."
wow.
And I think that that's really important for especially dreamers like you who have like you've taken a dream and you've already gotten it off the ground. That's amazing. That already puts you in that like upper echelon of dreamers that are actually executors too. But then that next level is okay, once I get real comfortable here, how do I push myself to that next level? And I think honestly, it's just taking that step, taking that risk, and
Yeah.
being able to write it down. I'm always such a big fan of this. I'm always just like, write down that next phase. Obviously, like, write down the dream. I'm a big fan of that. But write down this next phase. Like, okay, what does this next phase look like for you, Kendrick? What do you envision the
Yeah.
podcast looking like 6 months from now, a year from now? And then start ordering your steps and going, okay, well, if I'm going to get there, I'm going to have to carve out a little time every week, and maybe Wednesday afternoon, I have a window and I'm going to make this time to plan and, move into the next level. But I just think you need to be purposeful about it. I think you need to be brave about it and go, okay, I'm comfortable here, but I need to move into this next level. And that's where I think you are, in your podcast.
Oh, wow. That really helps, man. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And it's good for me too, because I'm such a Google Calendar guru. So I like that's so encouraging. Like that, I totally see that. Like scheduling it like it's work or class or
Yeah. 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 And I think for you too, like you're a student and you're trying to figure out time and it is tough when you're in school again, and you're trying to figure out those spaces, especially with Hillsong, where I'm sure it bleeds into like evenings and weekends and all that stuff. So sometimes it's
yeah.
hard to Google Calendar that. So, I mean, I think just even making a plan and going, okay, at least knowing where my first step is, you could schedule that in, but with an hour. But you could also just go, I know this is my next step. So whenever I have a window, I'm going to take this step.
Yeah.
So, well, Kendrick, that's
Wow.
awesome, man. Thank you so much for jumping on. And I'm really excited. Tell everybody again where they could listen to your podcast.
Yeah, so you can listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. It's the Dreamer Collective. Just type it in the search bar.
I
And
like that title.
yes, free right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kendrick, thank you so much for joining the Head in the Clouds podcast today.
Yes, honored. Thank you for having me.
That was awesome. I've been loving this in the series, calling people up and going, okay, what's your dream? What are some things you've got going on? I would love to answer some questions. And if you're listening to this podcast and you have some dreams that you want to take off the ground, or you're taking off the ground, or you're in the middle of it, and you want some advice and you want to talk on this podcast, just send me a DM at Ryan Romeo on Instagram. Just hit me up on Instagram. And I will get back to you. Facebook, maybe it takes me a while to get sorted through there. I get a lot of junk mail on Facebook. But hit me on DMs on Instagram for sure. I will definitely be checking that out. If you're liking this podcast, this is brand new that I'm doing it on YouTube. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff, share it. It really, really means a lot to me when you do that. Also, Head in the Clouds book. If you want to follow along with this series, I'm going to be going through content really right in line with this book. So if you want to follow along a little bit deeper, pick up the Head in the Clouds book. It's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all of those sort of places. But thank you. Thank you for jumping in. Thank you for being a part of this family. Thank you so much for being you and serving the dreams that God gave you. And I'm praying that you take those dreams off the ground. I'm praying that this season, this 12 weeks, is going to be a real big blessing to you. So all of you, like always, keep your head in the clouds and your feet on the ground. Until next time.